Hey everybody, on to an interesting topic about Israel and Gaza. Going to do a little history explaining here because I realize a lot of people don't know the history, so they're just jumping to different conclusions about things. Okay, so Israel hasn't been Israel for a number of years ago. Israel as a nation was destroyed and left as a wreck, but it was owned for a certain period by the Ottoman Empire, which is now considered to be Turkey. At some point toward the end of the 19th century, the creation of the Zionist movement resulted in many European Jews immigrating to Palestine. Nobody ever heard of that. This was going on during the 1880s. And the Jews were literally buying land. They were saving up their money while they were living in Europe and buying all of this land. So the Ottoman Empire of that time was like, look, no, guys, you can't purchase all of this land. No. You can't purchase all of this land. But they were doing it anyway, somehow doing it. So what happened is that eventually, in 1918, after the British conquest of Palestine, the military administration closed the land register and prohibited all sale of the land. The register was reopened in 1920, but to prevent speculation and ensure a livelihood for the fellahin, I don't know who that is, an edict was issued forbidding the sale of more than 300 dunams of land. I guess that's like a few acres or something. Of land, or the sale of land valued at more than 3,000 Palestine pounds without the approval of the High Commissioner. From the 1880s to the 1930s, most Jewish land purchases were made in the coastal plain, the Jezreel Valley, the Jordan Valley, and to a lesser extent, the Galilee. This was due to a preference for land that was cheap and without tenants. What do you think? There were two main reasons why these areas were sparsely populated. The first reason being that when the Ottoman power in the rural areas began to diminish in the 17th century, many people moved to more centralized areas to secure protection against the Bedouin tribes. The second reason for the sparsely populated areas of the coastal plains was the soil type. The soil, covered in a layer of sand, made it impossible to grow the staple crop of Palestine, corn. As a result, this area remained uncultivated and underpopulated. The sparse Arab population in the areas where the Jews usually bought their land, enabled the Jews to carry out their purchase without engendering a massive displacement and eviction of Arab tenants. In the 1930s, most of the land was bought from landowners. Of the land that the Jews bought, 52.6% were bought from non-Palestinian landowners, 24.6% from Palestinian landowners, 13.4% from the government, churches, and foreign companies, and only 9.4% from fellahin, farmers. Just from farmers. On December 31st, 1944, out of the 1,732.63 dunams of land, I'm assuming that's a large area of land, owned in Palestine by large Jewish corporations, oy and private owners, about 44% was in possession of the Jewish National Fund. It was a group of guys who basically, a bunch of corporate Jewish guys who bought the land. The table below shows the land ownership of Palestine by large Jewish corporations in square kilometers on December 31st, 1945. JNF, 660 square miles. PICA, by large Jewish corporations in square kilometers. Okay, read this again. 660 kilometers. 193 kilometers, 9.7 kilometers. For a total, all of these are different Jewish-owned companies. 906.8 kilometers of land, square kilometers of land, is owned by them. By the end of the mandate, more than half of the Jewish-owned land was held by the two largest Jewish funds, Jewish National Fund and the Palestine Jewish Colonization Association. By the end of the British Mandate period in 1948, Jewish farmers had cultivated 425,450 dunams of land, while Palestinian farmers had 5,484,700 dunams of land under cultivation. Okay? In 1936, the British government appointed the Peel Commission to investigate the reasons for the civil unrest in Palestine. Lord Peel's findings on the land purchase were as follows. A summary of land legislation enacted by during the civil administration shows the efforts made to fulfill the mandate obligation in this matter. The Commission points to serious difficulties in connection with legislation proposed by the Palestine government for the protection of small owners. The Palestine order in council, and, if necessary, the mandate should be amended to permit of legislation empowering the High Commissioner to prohibit the transfer of land in any stated area to Jews, so that the obligation to safeguard the right and position of the Arabs may be carried out. Until survey and settlement are complete, the Commission would welcome the prohibition of sale of isolated and comparatively small plots of land to Jews. Okay, so blah, 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 blah. The shortage of land is due to less purchase by Jews than to the increase in the Arab population. The Arab claims that the Jews have obtained too large a portion of good land cannot be maintained. Much of the land now carrying orange groves was sand dunes or swamps and uncultivated when it was bought. Legislation vesting surface water in the High Commissioner is essential. An increase in staff and equipment for exploratory investigations with a view to increasing irrigation is recommended. So, in other words, the Arabs didn't want the Jews buying more land, but the land the Jews were buying, they had to work hard to do anything with it on. Oopsie poopsie. Oh well. Reading another part here. Let's see here. Okay. In 1947, following World War II and the Holocaust, the British government announced its desire to terminate the mandate, and the United Nations General Assembly adopted in 1947 a Resolution 181, recommending partition into an Arab state, a Jewish state, and a special international regime for the city of Jerusalem. The Jewish leadership accepted the proposal, but the Arab Higher Committee rejected it. A civil war began immediately after the resolution's adoption. The State of Israel was declared in 1948. So the Brit Bones had held on to that area since the late 1800s, when and conquered it completely in World War I, sort of reconquistador it in World War II, and then said, okay, you Jews can go live there. Okay. So post-1948, in the 1948 Arab-Israeli War, Israel captured and incorporated a further 26% of the mandate territory. Jordan, the nation of Jordan, captured the regions of Judea, which is historically another part of Israel, and Samaria, another part of Israel, renaming it the West Bank, while the Gaza Strip was captured by Egypt. Following the 1948 Palestinian expulsion and flight, known as the Al-Nakba, the 700,000 Palestinians who fled or were driven from their homes were not allowed to return following the Lazawane Conference of 1949. In the course of the Six-Day War, man, they really skipped ahead, so we don't know what happened in between 1949 and June 1967. Israel captured the rest of the Mandate Palestine from Jordan and Egypt, and began a policy of establishing Jewish settlements in those territories. So all of the land that Egypt had captured and taken, and Jordan captured and taken, they took it all back. So now it's theirs. Oops. So that means Palestine actually kind of belongs to Israel by writ of war? By right of conquering? So, what's been going on since that happened? Basically, the Palestinians have been attacking Israel ever since. There's been several what they call intifadas, which basically means expulsion of the Jews by force. Just considered another nice way of saying jihad. So now let's get into what the whole deal with this is. The Palestinians, nobody knows where these people came from. They were just living out in that area for centuries. The assumption by many is that the Palestinians were basically people cast out of the other Arab nations for whatever reason the Arabs did this, and they've been living out there alongside the Jews for centuries. Now, when the mainline Jews come back in from Europe and start living there, the other Arab countries, as you just heard me say, they didn't like that. They didn't want the Jews there. Even though they weren't living on the land, they didn't own the land, they weren't doing anything with the land. The Brit-Bongs owned the land. So if the British say, yeah, we're going to let the Jews come back in there, what right do the Arabs have to say anything? Well, we just don't want them there. Do we look like we care? Do we look like we care? You see this? This is the accounts the Brits had to give about what the Arabs thought back then. It's absolutely zero. Zero fucks. Okay? So they let the Jews move in there, and the Jews were already buying land in there. They already had hundreds and hundreds of square acres of land that they already owned. They were already building there. They were already having towns and orange groves established there. So they were already there. They didn't just suddenly show up in 1947. Hell no, they'd been out there for at least 100 plus years. So what the? At that point, Palestine ain't got nothing to say. So then why the conflict? Simple. Palestine is basically a disposable, eugenic, generational army. Because Egypt could let these people in. Jordan could let these people in. There's several other nations around that area that could easily let all of those Muslims in. But they don't, because they don't want them in there. Because what they want to do is use the Palestinians as a disposable army to harass Israel into non-existence. But it's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. Egypt, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and Jordan have supported the different terrorist groups that sometimes run Israel, including the PLO, the Palestinian Liberation Organization. Been paying for these people for decades, taking care of them. All of that stuff you see on the news is part of the Gaza Strip. Guess who built out there? The Jews built all that for them. Palestinians ain't got enough brains to build a damn thing themselves, and that's just the ugly truth. So guess what? We, helping out the Jews, helped them build all of Palestine. So technically, it's kind of dumb for you to go in there and blow up your own infrastructure, Mr. Israeli people. But here's the deal. These people are a generational army. Yeah, even that little kid that got blown up, whatever it was last day in Palestine. He's part of the army too. He's going to grow up to be part of the Antifa. Basically the expulsion of the Jews. That's what happens. I've been watching this now ever since I was a little kid. These guys launch these Antifadas, whatever, these expulsion of the Jews, basically a nice way of saying holy wars against Israel, and they lose every time. And every time Israel starts pounding their poopers, oh, international community, help, 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 help. Yes, we know we attacked the Jews, but don't you guys think this is a little disproportionate of a response? I mean, yeah, we attacked them. Yeah, we killed several hundred of them, but come on, they're bombing the hell out of us. I think that's a little much, don't you? Oh, yes, the international community says, yes. Israel, stop that. Israel. And then they stop anyway. And then they just wait, and here comes whoever is running things around there over there in Gaza, and they're like, yeah, okay, we got them stopped. Start stocking up weapons again. Call up the Saudis, call up the Egyptians. Guys, they stopped bombing the hell out of us. Can you send us some more weapons, please? Sure. Because that's what Israel wants. They want these guys warring with Israel forever. They want them warring with Israel forever. Because they ain't got enough guts. As you heard me read, these guys have got every last Arab nation that's tried to invade Israel and Palestine have gotten their behinds handed to them. Repeatedly. They can't win. But if they can just harass Israel for the rest of its existence, that would be great. Even if it costs the lives of innocent women and children. I'm at a point now where I'm like, look, if y'all women and children are so innocent, y'all men stop going out there and fighting Israel and pissing off the Israelis, then they come in here and blow the hell up out of you. But you got to remember, these people literally think that they're going to die in jihad. They think they're in the middle of a jihad. They think they're going to die in jihad, and their mother, brother, sister, baby mama, whoever else, whoever's living in their household, when they die in jihad, whenever those people die, they get to go to heaven too because they're part of your household. So you got people who believe that when they die, everybody in the household is going to get to go to heaven too, or paradise, and get 72 virgins or what the hell ever. You can't convince these people that you need to stop fighting. You can't convince them of that. The only position you can convince them to stop fighting is from a position of genocidal levels of strength, where you can wipe Palestine off the map. That's when they'll listen. They've tried everything else with these people over the last 70 years. None of it's worked. So guess what? At some point, you're going to get tired of it and say, look, Egypt, you better take them in. Jordan, you better take them in. Syria, you better take them in. Whoever else is out there you want to take them in, take them on in. Because we about to bomb the hell up out of them. Trust me, the next time this happens, if we get some kind of ceasefire and everything calms down, if this happens again 5 years from now, or just 3 or 4 years from now, because these guys always seem to act up whenever. Let's see, let me check something here. Let me check something here. See, in 2000, the second Intifada, called the Al-Aqsa Intifada, began. Let's see, who was in office in 2000? Wasn't Bush? Clinton. Bush came in a little bit later. Then we had 9/11. That's interesting. Let's see. In 2005, Israeli disengagement from Gaza withdrew all the settlers and military presence from the Gaza Strip, but maintained military control. Okay. So that was the, let's see, how many intifadas have they had? Intifadas. The second intifada, let's look it up. Let's look this up right quick. The second Shawwal intifada? Holy cow. How many intifadas have they had? The last one, the second one lasted from 2000 to 2005. 4 years, 4 months, 1 week, and 4 days? What the hell? That's a long damn time to be getting blown up and treated like crap by your neighbors, i.e. the Israelis getting treated like crap by the Jews. So that was the second intifada. How many other intifadas were there? Who knows? But there's probably been at least 2 or 3 since then. And I know there has been because I've watched it on the news. So, at this point, I'm not feeling any sadness here. I'm just kind of like, look, you guys just need to stop. You just need to stop. But they don't want to stop. They want to keep this fight going. So, I'm at a point where I'm like, look, y'all just go ahead and keep fighting. Kill each other. I already know Palestine's going to lose. The only thing I'm saying is, look, just don't be spending my tax dollars on it. That's all I'm saying. I don't want to pay for more bombs to go over and blow up poor little Palestinian kids. But at the exact same time, I'm like, well, y'all keep sending your kids out there to get killed. What am I supposed to do? Y'all stay in the hospitals and every place else after you've been told, look, you need to run away. Oh, we're going to stay in there anyway because, jihad. Okay, fine. We'll send you to paradise. You can meet Allah in the next 20 minutes. Because the bombs, they be a-coming. But, I just wanted to update you people on the history. This is not a history of, quote-unquote, decolonization and colonization. No, the Israelites been living out there for years. Been living out there for well over a century plus. Almost 200 years now they've been living out there. They've been living in peace, supposedly, with the Palestinians until everybody else started poking their nose and everything. See what happens? when a bunch of foreigners start poking their nose and everything, suddenly the Israelis and the Arabs can't get along. Gosh, I wonder why. What would cause such a thing? Who knows? Alright then, folks, let me just go ahead and end this video. I think I've tried to be funny enough, but now you get the gist of this, okay? You get the gist of this. This is nothing new. It's been going on ever since the 1967, 1968, 1970. It's not going to end. You 20-somethings and millennials and whoever else can protest, bitch, and moan. These people still want to cut your head off afterwards. It's not going to end the way you want it. I would really rather not have civilian casualties, but when your civilians are stupid and keep staying in a war zone and keep allowing warriors and soldiers of an enemy army to set up batteries and mortar launchers and everything else on top of their hospitals, churches, and schools. What is the Israelis? What can they do? Well, we can't bomb that hospital, even though it's shooting surface-to-air missiles at us. Yeah, we can't because it's a hospital. But they've been launching surface-to-air missiles at us. Doesn't matter, it's a hospital. Yeah, that ain't happening. You know what's happening. You know exactly what's going to happen. They're going to level that hospital. Welcome to war, boys and girls. It ain't like Rambo. It ain't like all your television shows or your World War II movies. Welcome to what war is. It's bloody, it's cruel, and there's a lot of civilian casualties when you have to fight a war in the middle of civilian territory. And your enemy is walking around civilian territory using it as a potshot landing area to throw bombs at people at the other side. So, you asked for this ass kicking, as they like to say. Now you're going to get it. All right, everybody, take care and have a good night.